Welcome to the Mastering Therapy podcast with me, Dr. Natalie Stott, clinical psychologist. This podcast is for all psychologists, psychotherapists and counsellors who want to broaden their therapy skills, improve their confidence and be inspired by alternative ways of working. I'm sure I'm not alone in often trying to get new ideas, glean wisdom from those more experienced than me and to learn more. The nature of therapy is that it can be challenging and it's easy to feel on our own sometimes. So I've created a podcast to help with exactly that. It's my hope that this can be your weekly dose of CPD at no extra cost, because let's be honest, we've got enough of those. This podcast is a mixture of solo and guest episodes, and I'll be speaking with qualified professionals who will bring therapy tools, insights and strategies on how we can be more effective in our work. We will spotlight common themes in therapy that we all grapple with. And the best part is that as a listener of this podcast, you get to influence what topics we cover. Some of the highlights of this season include discussions on working with a strong inner critic, what to consider when working with the neurodivergent population, ways of working when someone is deep in grief, and ways of working with people-pleasing tendencies and when someone's stuck in that cycle of perfectionism. I'll invite my guests to walk you through what they actually do in a session, the language, the method that they use to explain something to clients, and any relevant research, and also the pitfalls, the things for us to be mindful of. So whether you work with adults or children, you work with one particular modality or use more of an integrative approach, there's something here for everyone that wants to add to their therapy toolkit. To be notified of future episodes and other interesting downloads, visit masteringtherapy.com. The Mastering Therapy podcast is free and available to download on all your favourite podcast apps. Stay tuned to hear a glimpse of what's to come this season.
So the whole CFT model in a way started with shame and self-criticism. There's something about self-criticism that blocks the ability of therapy to be as effective as it would be for people who don't struggle so much with self-criticism. So one of the exercises that we get people to do is a type of functional analysis in which we ask people to bring their self-critic to mind, maybe a time recently where they were being self-critical. And then a follow-up question is, how does that leave you feeling, receiving this? And again, the interesting thing here is that the emotions and feelings can be very different.
A lot of the time it's the consequences of the people pleasing that people are most aware of when they come to therapy. That's the bit that they see, and we can see how the people pleasing has been this way for her to cope. This isn't about battling the people pleasing. We don't have to cut it out. I can learn to soothe it. I can cope with this, and I can do it in a way that doesn't involve doing things that end up harming me. You have to do it through the feeling body. If you only do it through the cognitive side of things, it doesn't go deep enough.
That's a really well documented phenomenon as well, that around 10 to 30% of people do have trouble with their sleep. They don't actually say it unless you ask about it. When people have trouble falling asleep, often it's related to anxiety or some of the mechanisms that come with anxiety, like overthinking or dwelling or physical tension, things like that. If people are waking up early, quite often that can be more related to depression. It's like a circadian rhythm.
And I really do believe that we can use AI to be more organised, more present, and to deliver the best service to our clients. And you don't need to be an expert. And even if you feel like you're a technophobe, there are ways of integrating AI that don't need to feel overwhelming. So I'm going to cover 5 different ways that we can use AI in our work.
I don't think that grief has an end point. I think a lot of people come to therapy, or even practitioners would be thinking that is a task that has to end at some point. I don't think you're ever going to reach that point because your life continues. I often also talk about how your relationship with the person who died is changing. So it's changing its shape and form, and it's changing its place. It doesn't mean it's getting smaller, but this shape is changing, and I think it's really important to name that.
And I'm not going to put neurotypical expectations on our interactions. So if it's uncomfortable to have sustained eye contact with me, that's okay. I'm hopefully giving them permission from the offset to not have to mask and fit neurotypical expectations, so that I can hopefully see them being truly themselves.
I think it's a really valuable model. We want to be attuned to somebody's nervous system. And I think the other thing that is really crucial within polyvagal theory is the idea of co-regulation. And as therapists, obviously our main role, if you like, is to co-regulate, is to help that person to feel safe. So we want to set up an environment that promotes a sense of safety from the first moment that they're stepping inside our building, our therapy room, and then how we are with that person. We need to be regulated in ourselves to be able to co-regulate.
That's when I tend to do lots of behavioural experiments, because I never just want to leave it as, great, we've created a new guideline or rule for you, fantastic, go and live your life with this new rule. We often need to spend a lot of time thinking about, okay, what would that look like in terms of their behaviour? What would they actually be doing if they're living by this new rule?
The podcast is launching on the 24th of October 2024 and will be available to download at Apple, Spotify and all the usual places. Don't forget to hit follow and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and more information can be found at masteringtherapy.com. I look forward to you joining me.